All righty, let's bring him in. I got to give him a shot to defend himself because I've been taking some couple swipes at the Bay Area media, which I'm a part.
Uh-oh.
You ready, Cam? Hello.
Delivering newspapers since I was 10, so I've been part of the Bay Area media for about 10 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, here you go.
I'm Team Cam.
I think somebody in the Bay Area media should have asked Kyle Shanahan after the game if at any point he thought about putting Jimmy Garoppolo in the Chicago game, and can we assume that Trey Lance is starting week 2?
Well, why would you suspect that needed to be asked? Because everything he's indicated was there was no way he was going to be benching Trey Lance.
The reason is, and I'm not saying it's a good question or bad question, but the fact is it's asked in a lot of it would have been asked in Philly, New York,
Dallas,
L.A. maybe. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's a lazy question that you're just looking for a hot take because everybody knows the answer.
Don't you think you need to get him kind of on record?
No, not if you've been paying attention because he's been saying it from day one. If this continues, Matt, you're right. I think it's a very valid question. If Trey is obviously struggling, I think there was a little bit of rain out there, so you knew he was probably going to struggle, but it wasn't. I don't think that loss was on Trey Lance. I think that loss was on a lot of mistakes. The penalties, turnovers, obviously, but on the flip side of this, he's got to make some plays, and the offense has to make plays. They can't just blame it on their deficiencies. They have to do something that earns them the win.
Cam, last time I talked to you, JD was with me, and not in a million years did I think the Bears would beat the Niners, nor did I have the weather report. But with that said, I'm going to leave Trey Lance alone just for this conversation because everybody's focused on it. But I'm telling Steiny, I am surprised and nervous for Niner fans that George Kittle was not ready to play week 1, didn't practice today, and now you have no Mitchell and the question marks with the O-line. Are you at all concerned about that aspect of this team this early on?
I think anytime George Kittle's not on the field, it's a glaring concern. From what he brings from the receiving, but also more importantly from that blocking perspective, like you said, to help the offensive line out for a young quarterback. And, he was on, last we saw him on the field was last Monday,
wow.
which apparently is when George hurt his groin. So he hasn't been out there, which is not a good sign, and so it is a big concern.
Cam Inman joining us on 95.7 The Game. He covers the San Francisco 49ers for Bay Area News Group. Cam, the one thing that I thought was, all right, today I'm going to think about the stuff Trey Lance did well on Sunday and what gives you, hope looking forward. My 3 were his composure and poise on the field and off, obviously his arm, and then lastly was he does seem to have good instincts when he's running the ball.
Yeah, I think all 3 of those are his best assets. And let's start off running the ball. He's a bigger body guy, right? So he's subject to a lot of these hits, but he's willing to withstand them, and he's learning fast about the game, right? Then let's talk about the arm, because I'm still mesmerized by that 20-yard completion to Ray McCloud. It was okay, and I asked Shanahan and Trey Lance and Ray McCloud about that yesterday. And they were all very subdued in their responses, which I get because they lost the game. No reason to really give him an attaboy pick-me-up for doing his job and throwing the ball where it needs to be. But, so why was I so mesmerized? And I think it's because it was such a daring pass to throw into triple coverage, and it's not a pass that Jimmy Garoppolo would have done on purpose. I mean, there's been times where Jimmy's thrown, there's 3 defenders around, but not intentionally. I thought it was just a hell of a pass, and maybe it would have been my angle in the press box, but he silenced all of press row, and we were kind of murmuring under our breath, holy crap, did you just see that pass? And that's what brings Trey Lance into the starting fold, because he has that arm where he can make that throw to the numbers or to the boundaries, right? What he also needs to do, though, he needs to get better on those short, quick passes, which is where Jimmy Garoppolo excelled, right? And so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, but you figure he's going to learn that touch. And he's not going to learn it in the monsoon in Chicago. So how is he going to do fun day if it's raining at Levi Stadium on those passes, right? And if he can't hit those, then he's going to have to do more of those 20-yard out routes to Ray McLeod, Brandon Ayuk, and hopefully Deebo Samuel, who just can't seem to get on the same page with.
Yeah, Cam, that's where I was going next. You know, all off season we heard about Ayuk and Trey Lance and their rapport, but how much of 2 receptions for Ayuk, 2 for Deebo, do you put on the monsoon? Or do you just say, you know what, Goose, something's got to change this Sunday? But that stood out to me, the lack of production from those 2.
Yeah, I mean, and Trey kind of dismissed it, saying, "Don't worry about it. I'm going to be going to Brandon." And I certainly think that's going to be the case. I think Brandon will get more throws his way when it's not raining so hard. But and then the Deebo Trey Lance relationship, as much as we freak out about them not connecting on downfield passes like in that exhibition finale, or even the short passes that we saw in Chicago. It's almost more important that they're on the same page in the running game on these option handoffs, because that right now is, like, to me, that's Deebo's number 1 role is to be a physical runner rather than the 1,000-yard receiver.
Man.
Cam Inman joining us on 95.7 The Game. Cam, I know what he says about the penalties. 49ers have been the most penalized team since the beginning of last year. Has he ever said, you know what, that's on me?
I don't think he ever has. I think he dismisses it and says we're going to get it cleaned up. Some of those were avoidable. This is what he said yesterday, was that some of those penalties were avoidable, which is true. And then you can't really get into the whole ticky-tack thing, because a lot of these penalties are judgment calls, and when things aren't going your way, you're going to be bitching about them. And so I did a lot of reading of the Chicago papers and just to see how they reported about this game, and not one of them talked about the Niners' 12 penalties. They just talked about what won the game for the Bears, right? And it's a losing team's mentality if you're bitching about penalties. You just got to clean them up, don't make them, and then go out and win the game.
Cam, let's talk about the other side of the ball, because I was shocked. The first half defensively, that's what I expected. I'm tweeting, I don't think Chicago may score, and this is not high school. What do you think happened? Did they tire? What does Cam Inman think about? I won't call it a collapse, but if you want to, I'm not mad about the Niner defense giving up 2 scores when it looked like they had the game in hand.
I picked these guys to win 20-0. So when it was 10-0, I thought I was Nostradamus. I had it. I was feeling as good as the Niners were, and then there were a couple breakdowns with the penalties, and then the coverages that were blown on those 2 touchdowns. So as much as we're praising Hufanga and the defense and how they're doing, they're inexcusable. So, like, sure, they got an A+ in the first quarter. Bosa and Ebukam got sacks on 3rd down. That's what they're supposed to do. But they didn't get more than that. And when you're caving away on defense and you needed to pile up points at that time, that's how these 10-point leads get slipped away. That's how we saw it in the NFC Championship game, saw it in the Super Bowl, and it's unforgivable. And they got to figure out how to close out games better. And whether that's the defense's fault or the offense can't, it's really a combination of factors. Although I'll say the special teams unit, that's the only one that didn't screw up in Chicago. And they kind of have a big game this week, because this is my transition to the home opener. Is they're playing Seattle, and Seattle's former special teams coordinator is now the Niners special teams coordinator, and it's Brian Schneider, right? Did I get that right? And I think the Niners special teams cost them both games against Seattle last year, and they need to take that seriously this week.
That's a good nugget. I'm going to, as the kids say, noted. Yeah. Cam, thank you so much for joining us as always, buddy.
Were you going to join me at the game on Sunday, or are you going to be rained out?
It's a good question.
Oh, wow.
It's a good question.
Man. Rally up. Let's go.
Yeah. Says the
field. We need you here.
Yeah. Says the guy who will be in the press box.
Yeah. 20-0 prediction.
I'll be down on the field before game. Okay, then I'll retreat.
All right. Have a good one, buddy.
Take it easy.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right.